Good afternoon. Good afternoon, and welcome. I got the thumbs up from Beatrice up there, so it's time to go. That's what that all means. My name is Amanda McMullen. I'm the president and CEO here at the New Bedford Whaling Museum, and I am delighted to welcome you to our 121st annual members meeting of the Old Dartmouth Historical Society. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Or I suppose you could say in Massachusetts on May 22nd, welcome to summer, right? What was it, 80 degrees outside when you all came in? I want to open with my great appreciation to each one of you as members of the Society and the Museum. Because of your dedicated support, we continue to accomplish great things and deliver on our mission to ignite learning. We would not be able to do this, of course, without our critical volunteers who are our extension in education, and I know many of you in the room. Please raise your hands, I see you. Members of our volunteer council, big round of applause. Led by Bob Saltzman, I know I saw Bob, who is the volunteer council president. Thank you, Bob. I also want to thank my colleagues on the museum team here, museum professionals. Raise your hands, identify yourself as the team at the Whaling Museum. I'm humbled, truly humbled by your dedication and effort every single day. And to our board of trustees, led by our board chair, Tony Sapienza, I said when we reopened after the pandemic, if you're going to get yourself a board to get through a pandemic and thrive, get yourself my board. This is the board to have. So thank you to our board of trustees, outgoing and incoming. Let's give them a round of applause. So the annual meeting, it's always one of my favorite moments in the year. When we come together, we celebrate our accomplishments of past years, the past fiscal year of 2023. But what I always love about this meeting is we always kind of lean a little into the future, and we hint at tomorrow and a preview of what's to come. And so with that spirit in mind, I want to tell you a quick story about a particular gift from last year that will give you a sense of a little bit looking backwards as well as how we leaned forward to help students in our community. On January 18th, 2023, I received an email from a museum member, Bob Gelbke. It began, "Hello, Amanda. I grew up in Sharon, Massachusetts, but spent my summers in Westport. I fondly remember our family outings into New Bedford to visit the Whaling Museum and stay connected with our Macy whaling heritage." Bob went on to say, "I do love the way that the museum is so community-centric and works to reach out even further. My wife, Carolyn, and I are in the process of some planning, and I have a thought to put forth." And boy, was it a thought. Bob notes that he spent his summers in Westport, but he was now retired as an commercial airline pilot. He was living on the West Coast. He and Carolyn had an insatiable appetite for travel, so they were never staying anywhere longer than 2 weeks. They would touch down, and then they'd be off somewhere else. So they were trying to decide what to do with 10 acres of property in Westport, Massachusetts. And I said, boy, we could help you with that. So for many months in 2023, we worked with Bob to transfer that property. And then the museum was able to sell it, amazingly enough, to another member of the Whaling Museum. Not by design, it just happened out that perfectly. The result of that gift from the Gelbkes was nearly $800,000 that set up an endowed fund called the Robert Macy Gelbke and Carolyn Gelbke Endowment, the Macy Legacy Learning Fund. Through this effort, Bob and Carolyn infused our work in the New Bedford area, particularly with students K-12. Their gift is entirely focused on helping the museum open our doors wide to support K-12 learning for our students in this community in perpetuity. Extraordinary. That's worth a round of applause. An incredible, incredible legacy gift that they made and a legacy moment. And so much of the conversations with Bob and Carolyn were so amazing because they always were talking about tomorrow. And what are we leaving for the next generation? What are we doing for tomorrow? And so as we envision our next century, we got 121 years here in the books, what's to come, I want you to know as members that we are always focused on and thinking about our tomorrow as an institution. And with that in mind, I am so excited to share with you that the Whaling Museum is in the process of developing property right across the street on William Street that we bought several years ago to create a state-of-the-art, first of its kind on the South Coast, welcome and exhibition center. How about that? As members, I wanted you to be among the first to hear. There is going to be so much more that we talk about this in the year to come. It's an incredibly exciting and galvanizing moment for the institution. And you will see in a moment in our highlights reel, we have the wind at our backs. The momentum is so strong for this institution and frankly for this whole region. So I hope you sit back for a quick second and enjoy a recap on our 2023 highlights. Thanks.
"2023 was the year of you.
You came to the Whaling Museum for programs, learning, and fun.
Thanks to you, we made an impact.
You joined over 80,000 visitors from all 50 states and over 36 countries.
You discovered seaweed as never before and enjoyed 9 rotating exhibitions.
You enjoyed our 3D films, went on a digital whaling voyage, and explored our digital audio guides.
You allowed us to ignite learning in more than 7,000 students at the museum.
You, along with more than 10,000 other guests, attended over 80 public programs.
You allowed us to advance learning and leadership for our high school apprentices.
What do all of these accomplishments have in common? You.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for making 2023 extraordinary.
Good afternoon. Wasn't that a wonderful recap of a great year? Thank you, Amanda, and the whole museum team for all of your efforts in 2023 and for making it such a standout year for the museum. None of that would have been possible without you, our members. This meeting highlights all that you helped make possible. Our efforts to welcome, engage, steward, and thrive have never felt more alive than they have over the past year. I'm Tony Sapienza, chair of the museum's Board of Trustees, and I would like to ask for a motion to open the 121st Annual Members Meeting of the Old Dartmouth Historical Society. Is there a motion? And a second? All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? There being none, the motion carries. As members, you all know the critical role you each play in helping the museum grow and thrive as a cultural anchor of the South Coast. You also play a key role each year at the annual meeting in approving our process for nominating trustees and updating our bylaws. To do this, I would like to open the voting portion of the annual meeting. I would also like to ask for a motion to accept the slate of votes as noted on your program and shared online in advance of the meeting. Is there a motion? And a second? All those in favor? Okay, let's move forward to our Finance and Governance Committee reports. And I turn to Wick Simmons, Chair of our Finance Committee and Treasurer, and Michelle Taylor, our Chief Administrative Officer and CFO, to get us started.
Good afternoon. Before I introduce Michelle and she brings you up to date with the detail on our outstanding year of 2023, there are a couple of points I'd like to make in terms of the way it leads into this 11 William Street campaign that will redefine the Whaling Museum in the next 2 or 3 years. First of all, it was really an excellent year. Year over year, our attendance increased about 15%, which is very big for us. And our operating income, as a result, both from contributed and operating revenues, increased about 28%, a really superior performance. The excellent thing about that is that it leads us nightly into a very strong balance sheet, and that balance sheet plus the income statement put us in a great position to undertake the 11 William Street campaign, where, as you know, we're going to try and raise $31 million over the next 2 or 3 years. Another result of this strong year was the fact that our just received audit, we received it about a month ago, was so clean that the auditor actually had no items for attention for us, which is highly unusual in every given year. And also, again, leads into a very strong financial backdrop for the 11 William Street campaign. And it just reminds me at the end here to simply say thank you to all of you. You've been marvelous and stalwart supporters of the museum for a long period of time. We go into this campaign with no debt on our balance sheet, unlike most other nonprofits that I'm aware of. And that's all because of the support, the continuing support that you've provided us with. So with the hope that that will continue to be here and the expectation that it will, we will continue to perform financially for you. Now, Michelle, why don't you bring everybody up to date on what actually happened in 2023?
Thanks, Wick. It's an honor to do so. Back in 2022, as we were climbing back from the pandemic and building momentum, the museum boldly chose to make a number of strategic investments to build capacity, improve our product, grow our programs, and broaden our reach in order to grow our audience and deepen engagement. I am pleased to report that in 2023, those investments paid off. As you heard from Amanda and can see from the highlights video, it was an outstanding year on all fronts. Our membership grew by 11%, and as Wick mentioned, attendance increased by 15% to more than 81,000 visitors. As a result, and including a small price increase, attendance-driven operating income increased by 33%. And thanks to our generous supporters, contributed income for operations increased by 30% to more than $4 million. Taken together, this led to an impressive year-over-year overall revenue gain of 28%. Operating expenses, always carefully managed, increased by 13% in 2023, in part due to inflation, but more deliberately by the fact that we added to our programs and our team. In sum, total operating revenue of nearly $6.9 million exceeded operating expenses by $631,000, and we are very pleased with that result. On the endowment, with $776,000 in new gifts plus portfolio gains of 14%, the endowment grew from $16.4 million at the start of the year to $18.6 million at year end. Our financial position is stronger than ever, with nearly $37 million in net assets. In addition to receiving a clean audit opinion for 2023, the museum once again has earned the highest platinum seal from GuideStar, now known as Candid, and the highest 4-star rating from Charity Navigator. This demonstrates the museum's commitment to fundraising efficiency and strong fiscal management. This year and every year, we are so grateful to all of our generous supporters and loyal members. Thanks to your enthusiastic and continuing support, we have accomplished and will continue to accomplish great things. Thank you.
Each year, the New Bedford Whaling Museum's Governance Committee works to nominate a strong new class of trustees and a dynamic group of returning trustees for a second term, as well as oversee the proposal of the officers. The proposed class of 2027 trustees is Michael Keating, Tricia Shade, Mark Schmid, Ellen Stone. Trustees proposed for second term are David Gomes, Dana Ribeiro, Maria Rosario, Nancy Shanik. The proposed slate of 2024 through 2025 officers is Anthony Sapienza, Chair, Douglas Crocker II, First Vice Chair, Bernadette Souza, Second Vice Chair, Hardwick Simmons, Treasurer, Ricardo Bermudez, Assistant Treasurer, Paulina Aruda, Clerk, R. Davis Webb, Assistant Clerk, Carol M. Taylor, Past Chair. Additionally, members will be invited to approve the proposed amendments to the bylaws. Details on the amendments were made available in advance of the annual meeting and are on our website. Copies of the bylaws have been made available to all in attendance in person today. In a moment, membership will be invited to approve the nomination of our new and returning class of trustees, our officers, and our bylaw amendments.
Finance Committee and the Governance Committee did extraordinary work this past year. Thank you, Wick Simmons, for chairing the Finance Committee, and thank you, Ralph Martin, for chairing the Governance Committee. We've had a wonderful year in 2023, and I'm looking forward to 2024. We will now move into a series of 4 votes to approve our proposed class of 2027 trustees, trustees nominated for a second term, a proposed slate of 2024 officers, and the amendments to the museum's bylaws. In addition to the proxy votes previously submitted by members, I will ask for a show of hands to conduct our voting process. First vote. We will now vote to approve the proposed class of 2027 trustees that were presented in the Governance Committee report: Michael Keating, Tricia Shade, Mark Schmidt, and Ellen Stone. Is there a nomination from the floor? No, there are no nominations from the floor. Do I have a motion to nominate this class of 2027? And a second? All those in favor? Any opposed? There being none, the motion carries. Congratulations to our 4 new trustees. Our second vote. We will now vote to approve the trustees nominated for a second term that were also presented in the Governance Committee report. They are David Gomes, Dana Ribeiro, Maria Rosario, and Nancy Shanik. Is there a motion to approve these returning trustees? And is there a second? All those in favor? Any opposed? The motion carries. Thank you to our returning trustees, and thanks for your vote, and thank you for your continuing service as trustees. For our vote of the proposed slate of officers, I will recuse myself and invite Trustee John Garfield to preside over the vote.
Are the nominations for the officers of the museum are Tony Sapienza for chair, Douglas Crocker for vice chair, Bernadette Souza for second vice chair, Ricardo Bermudez, for assistant treasurer, Paulina Aruda for treasurer. Did I miss Wick Simmons up there? Oh my goodness, I knew I could ad-lib this. Wick Simmons for treasurer, Paulina Aruda for clerk, R. Davis Webb for assistant clerk, and Carol Taylor for past chair. Are there any nominations from the floor? Hearing none, is there a motion to nominate the 24-25 slate of officers? Is there a second? All in favor, please say aye. Anybody opposed? Thank you. Now, please to turn it back over to Tony, and I can sit down.
When we have to draft a trustee like that who's maybe not quite accustomed to doing it, we always hold our fingers and keep them crossed to make sure that everything works out. John, you were excellent. Did really well done. Thank you. Thank you for approving our trustee and officer nominations. I'm honored to again serve as your chair for the next year. For our final vote, we will approve a number of revisions to the bylaws that have been developed and approved by the Governance Committee. These updates include scrivener's edits, as well as changes to the calendar for the Board of Trustee meetings, an update to the Society's non-discrimination policy, and an update to the name of the Education Committee to the Museum Learning Committee. The full bylaws have been posted on our website, which are accessible via the QR code on the back of your program. We also had paper copies available at check-in for your review. So, let me call for a motion to approve the amendments to the bylaws. Thank you. Is there a second? Second. Is there any discussion of the amendments to the bylaws? There being none, I will call the question. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? There being none, the motion carries and the amendments to the bylaws have passed. I would now like to conclude the work of our Governance Committee and close out the voting portion of the annual meeting. Having said that, we will now talk about our outgoing trustees. Let me use the proper term. The Whaling Museum has always benefited from the wisdom of leaders in our community. I would like to recognize our 5 outgoing trustees and thank them for their dedicated service and leadership. I would like to invite those present to step forward to the stage to receive their presentation from the museum in appreciation of their service. David, Chrissy, and okay. And John. Oh, thank you. Yeah, yes, you are. We recently lost 4 very special friends of the museum. These supporters have all contributed significantly to the museum. In fact, you will recognize the names on some of our most well-known galleries and public spaces on this list. These individuals shared a love for the museum's mission, and we will miss them all very much. Jack Breitmeyer. Jack fell in love with the Whaling Museum as a young boy, and his transformational support of this organization spanned decades. The Breitmeyer Family Gallery is named in his honor. We are forever grateful to Jack and his wife, Nancy, who is with us today. Nancy. For the advancements they made possible. Susan Swetzer Brinkenmeyer. Susie was a dear friend of the museum who championed special exhibit projects, fine arts, and our deep relationship with Salters Point in Dartmouth. She also gifted the Harborview Terrace of the Waddles Jacobs Education Center, which she named in memory of her parents, Peter and Ruth Sweetser. Joan Jacobs. Joan Jacobs passed away earlier this month. Joan was a champion for education and supporting New Bedford students. She was the beloved wife of Irwin Jacobs, and Joan and Irwin's support for the museum includes the Jacobs Family Gallery and the Waddles Jacobs Education Center. Joan and Irwin's generosity to the museum has fundamentally shaped our campus and our mission. Sandra Turner. Sandra was a staunch supporter of the museum in recent years. Following the death of her husband, Dr. Rod Turner, whose bequest named the Turner Gallery, Sandra came to love the museum in her own special way. Her annual support was a testament to her commitment to our mission. We are honored to be chosen as host for her memorial service with her family and friends last summer. Can we please have a moment of silence for these and all of our departed trustees and supporters from the past year? Thank you. I would like to call for a motion to close the business portion of the meeting. Is there a motion? So moved. And a second? All those in favor of closing the business portion of this meeting, please indicate by raising your hand. All those in favor, very good, thank you. There any opposed? There being none, the motion carries. Thank you. And I now invite Amanda back to the podium to introduce our keynote speaker.
All right. We have a very special guest here, and Kristen Greenaway, the CEO of the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum. And before I do formal introductions, I just have a personal story to share about Kristen and what she has meant to me in terms of my role serving all of you in the community. So, as I mentioned, we're dreaming really big with the property across the street, across William Street. But before we got into all that dreaming, we wanted to make sure that we had a roadmap for what would be smart growth of our physical spaces. What would it look like to evolve this incredible, incredible facility, which is actually 10 buildings, if you will, woven together, 5 of which are historic? And what are the opportunities if we were really to be soulful and strategic in examining what our opportunities for growth might look like? And this all came in 2021, and there was, a little pandemic still lingering around. But the Whaling Museum, as you're getting a sense at this meeting, was really decidedly thriving through a pandemic, if you will. We went into this sort of unexpected moment, and thanks to incredible support from a board of trustees, we didn't just put our head in the sand and think, oh, I hope we survive it. We decided to put an exclamation mark on this and say, we're going to grow our way through this and put our foot on the pedal. And so we did. And part of that is I thought, I have to have a roadmap for how do we grow our physical space. So we started to think about doing campus master planning. And what would it look, like I said, over decades of growth for this institution, for this city, too. And I called a number of museum directors, and every person called back and offered a little nugget here, a little advice there, but nobody gave me the time that you did, Kristen. Nobody walked me through her entire experience, her steps. Nobody sent me an example of an RFP and said, use this, make sure you read it. Nobody was as honest and straightforward and down to earth as you were, Kristen, and I am forever grateful to you for being that colleague, being that museum friend. And so it is a full circle moment to be able to welcome you here today, because you are the gift that keeps giving to New Bedford, if you will. Thank you. But let me also officially tell you a little bit about Kristen and her excellent leadership. She is the president and CEO, as I said, of the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum in St. Michael's, Maryland. She was also recently appointed the first female president of the International Congress of Maritime Museums. At CBB, Kristen leads their dynamic team in its singular mission of exploring and preserving the history, environment, and culture of the entire Chesapeake Bay region, making this resource accessible to all. Although the communities that we both serve are distinct and utterly unique, the Whaling Museum and the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum have so much in common. Both were founded on busy working waterfronts. Both were originally formed by a group of engaged citizens intent on preserving the region's rich history and traditions. Both are undergoing significant campus building growth and transitions, if you will, and expansions that are really designed to support visitor engagement. But perhaps most importantly, we share a commitment to be a vital community partner as we both ignite learning through the stories of our people and our region. And it is an honor to welcome Kristen Greenaway to our stage.
So Amanda has now someone to blame if it all goes wrong. Kia ora. Thank you very much this evening. I'm absolutely honored to be here this evening to share with you some of the work that we are doing at CBMM. First, who here has visited the museum, the Chesapeake Bay Maritime Museum? Thank you. I appreciate it. All right, for those who haven't yet visited, I thought to share some slides of campus. This is one half, the southern half of campus. This is in 1929, an absolute hotbed of industrial activity. And if you look along the very, very bottom, that was the end or the beginning of the shoreline. So this entire campus called Navy Point is all oysters. So when it floods, or we've got lots of rain, still after all these years, the air is bubbling up in these puddles as the water comes through the oyster beds. So the next one, so here we are, this is the first half of the actual Maritime Museum. Again, Navy Point, looking from the south in the 1960s. And we opened in 1965. So the Hupper Strait Lighthouse on the right there, and the entire, this area all up here is now us. And does everybody remember the movie Wedding Crashers? That's the place right at the very top there, the Inn at Perry Cabin. So here we are today. And we have a very active shipyard. You can see there on the bottom. The brand new Welcome Center we just opened is up the top left there. We just bought the big kind of pseudo steamship. It's called Patriot. Now we've added the ability to take out about 165 people at a time instead of 36 on our buy boat, which is on the hard stand there. And we've also just bought the restaurant property and that enormous car park in the middle, 1.44 acres, which I've called the hole in the donut. I'm coming up on my 10-year anniversary, and from day one, it was my goal to get that hole in the donut, which has bifurcated campus for absolutely decades, and we closed on January 5th. I spent all Christmas break in my nightie for a fortnight, sitting at my phone and screen, getting that. This is the best case of seller's remorse you have ever experienced. So that is where we are. So in December, we celebrated the opening of our new 12,000 square foot Welcome Center. So this is a standalone museum experience in its own right. So if the rest of campus is flooded through climate change, and it's the Chesapeake Bay, you get the southerlies, it blows all the water up the bay, you get the northerlies, and it blows all the water out the bay. So we have a seiche effect. Remember when we were kids in the bath and would swish, swish, swish? That's a seiche effect. The Dutch knew it well. One of the key parts of this new exhibition building is that many of our vessels have been in storage for over 40 years and no one has ever seen them. So we have this amazing narrative based around the history of these vessels on this racking system, which Mystic Seaport was quite envious of. And we don't do ribbon cuttings. And I got it on the second shot because I just wanted to linger a little bit longer. So I wanted to remind everybody, what is a museum? This is the Extraordinary General Assembly of ICOM, International Congress of Museums, who approved a new definition for a museum in Prague on 24th of August, 2022. And I want to draw your attention to collects tangible and intangible heritage, open to the public, accessible, inclusive. We foster diversity and sustainability. We operate and communicate ethically, professionally, and with the participation of our communities. Varied experiences for education, and you've got to enjoy yourself. We have to be fun. And also to remind you of your own mission statement. The new Bedford Whaling Museum ignites learning through explorations of art, history, science, and culture rooted in the stories of people the region, and an international seaport. It's all about the stories of people. So together this raises several extremely important tenets I know New Bedford believes in, as we do at CBMM. As museum professionals, we have to integrate the community into the museum, to explore museums' potential as community catalysts. The museum profession needs to get away from its elitist orientation. A lot of curators think that they own their objects in the collection. They don't. And embrace this community as partners in community curation and community museums. Loyalty is the real value. Authenticity is absolutely imperative, and that is key. Customer care is now social care. A community isn't built through outreach or listening alone. There's got to be engagement. And our collections are unique. No one else has our respective collections. We have the largest collection of watercraft in the Chesapeake Bay. We've got about 140 vessels. Don't ever lead a museum with 140 wooden boats. In the world, you've got the grand panorama. We are all so unique. So I believe the real question for our institutions are, what community do we presently serve? What communities do we wish to serve for the future? And address the issues that we need to be thinking about. So after taking some time to reflect on our own museum's journey, it's evident that one of the key factors contributing to CBMM's success thus far has been the parallel development of our Diversity, Equality, Accessibility and Inclusion Task Force, our DEAI. In the summer of 2020, and we all remember what happened in the summer of 2020, which started much of this conversation, and the accompanying revision of our interpretive plan. As we looked forward to new and re-envisioned exhibitions and buildings, we recognized the imperative of this work. Our existing narratives, rooted in personal storytelling and material culture, provided a robust foundation. However, it was the convergence of completing the DEAI plan, which I've offered to share, because you're going through a re-accreditation in a year and we've just completed it, so we've got a lot of paperwork we can pass on, and the interpretive plans around the same time that facilitated a more seamless integration of diverse approaches. So intentionally infusing the DEAI principles into all facets of our planning process, we expanded upon our interpretive core concepts and themes. We made space for both innovation and tradition, acknowledging that the Chesapeake not only shapes our personal identities, but also serves as a source of inspiration and a vital ecosystem, emphasizing that the bay's waters are more than just a resource for fisheries. They are also habitats and environments that people actively engage with and enjoy and seek to preserve. Many of you will be aware of the Chesapeake Bay Foundation. We tend to focus, well, we do focus on the cultural heritage of the Bay, and the Chesapeake Bay Foundation as partners look at the environmental side. So, in partnerships is everything in our game as well. So, recognizing the evolving nature of our region's community, seemingly subtle changes to our interpretive plan have yielded transformational outcomes. While our messaging has evolved alongside these changes, we have maintained continuity with our successful approaches spanning more than 50 years. And this has enabled us to refresh long-term exhibits without necessitating complete renovations, a process that can be time-consuming and extremely costly. In tandem with the interpretive plan, our designation as a Folklife Center in 2020 catalyzed further growth. This grant accompanying this designation provided both impetus and resources to foster collaborations with the community, document traditions, and incorporate folklife into our exhibition planning. Too few museums are looking at the local folklife art that is being produced in our communities. It's been going on for centuries. You've got a great tribute to it, even from the whaling concepts. It's the scrimshaw. It's it's the beginning of folk life in many respects, and even prior. A network organizational development grant facilitated engagement with our marketing and communications firm, enhancing our outreach efforts. If you've got a good story, you need to be able to tell people all about your good stories. So drawing upon inputs from focus groups, surveys, interviews, and collaborative workshops involving staff from all departments, we identified achievable programming ideas with significant impact. This very inclusive approach extended folklife and diverse interpretations beyond curatorial and educational realms, permeating throughout our institution. Projects piloted, successfully, including speakers, demonstrations, oral history documentation. We feel like we're NPR's StoryCorps on steroids with regard to our oral history documentation. They've become regular features of our festivals and programming, and then we draw anywhere from 4,000 to 9,000 people in a weekend to our festivals. Suggestions from our community engagement efforts underscore the importance of early collaboration with community groups, a principle we're actively implementing. And through initiatives such as oral histories with Waterman, storytelling events, and partnerships with community organizations, we have fostered meaningful relationships. Central to our efforts is the commitment to authentic, inclusive storytelling. We strive to integrate the histories of all cultures and groups into our narratives, fostering an environment where guests feel welcomed, engaged, and connected. Ultimately, we envision the Chesapeake as a dynamic space where communities converge, evolve, and thrive, and actually create new conversations amongst other groups as well. So one of the best examples of success in community engagement was a recent exhibition, we just closed it after a year, called The Changing Chesapeake. We sent out a call for submissions, asking folks to reflect on how climate change and the impact of humans on the environment shapes their Chesapeake community. And you can imagine the Chesapeake is in quite an enormous place with all its tributaries. So there's a lot of resource there. How the way they identify with the bay, inspired by the bay and how it's evolved, and what they would want someone 100 years from now to know about life and community traditions in the Chesapeake and their vision for the future of the region. So we anticipated perhaps 20 or 30 submissions. We received over 150 submissions. And a panel of community folks blind curated the works to be exhibited. We had nothing to do with it. If anyone recognizes Tangier Island, this is Tangier under quite a bit of water. Based on the work and their artist statement, that panel exhibited 75 selected works. It was a really emotional opening night. This woman, this is the view from her kitchen window. So it was any medium. It was video, it was song, it was sculpture, it was oils, I mean, you name it. This was the first work that you saw when you came in the door, the entrance, and she just burst into tears. It was, I love my job. So this particular work, The Generous Jenny, I wonder if anyone remembers the name of that ship, by Joy Lowe. Joy was absolutely compelled to honor the memory of the enslaved people whose names are not spoken then and are not spoken to this day. The natural materials are used to showcase the beauty, endurance, and weathering of the Patuxent River. Aboard the Generous Jenny, 260 Africans were designated for James Bowles, who founded Sottley Plantation in southern Maryland. Out of the 260 bodies, 211 arrived at Sottley in 1720. So this piece here is a tribute to the souls of the ship and their determination to survive. 91 enslaved men, that's the brown sea glass. 100 enslaved women made of other sea glass. 20 enslaved children made from brown sea glass. 20 unaccounted made from the white sea glass. And 29 overboard infected with smallpox made of shell. So it's an incredibly moving piece that we would never have had the opportunity to experience if she had not responded to our calls for paper for these artworks. So as I remind my amazing board, we each have, our board is the envy of many in our region as well. We dedicate significant time and attention to financial management, ensuring balanced budgets each year and strategizing for future fiscal stability. However, we cannot overstate the importance of the transformative work we accomplish in the interpretive and curatorial fronts. It can't all be about the budget in that respect. And this is the work that truly represents CBMM's future. The synergy between our efforts in DEAI and interpretive endeavors distinguishes us within the museum landscape. It's not just about maritime history. It's about redefining museum experiences across the board. Our reputation hinges on this innovative approach, which amplifies community voices and perspectives. And as we continue to evolve, our commitment to inclusive storytelling and community engagement remains paramount. And this is the essence of our identity and where our reputation truly thrives, setting us apart as leaders in the museum field. So I'd like to end, just turned it off. Turned it back on again. Yep. So I recognize that the New Bedford Whaling Museum is a member of the International Congress of Maritime Museums. Thank you very much. And this is rather a sad tale, but it's very pertinent to who we are and what we do as museums. So as president of ICMM, we recently, we being CBMM, recently hosted ICMM's Executive Council. Fred Hocker, who's the Director of Research at the Wasser Museum, and Larsen Reyes, who is the Superintendent and Director, and actually page to the King, as a Lord himself, of the Norwegian Maritime and Transportation History Museums, were two of the attendees and two of the chaps on my Executive Council. Wasser is one of the 4 museums in that group. Sweden is actively preparing for war. And you can see how far Sweden is from Russia. You can see how close everybody else is. The plans that they are taking to preserve their cultural heritage, they are amassing supplies to be able to protect sculptures in public places, to be able to take objects down quickly and hide them. Do you remember during World War II when Churchill whipped everything out of all the museums in London and spirited them away and put them underground, deep underground? This is what Sweden is doing right now. And why? Russia is systematically and deliberately destroying the cultural heritage of Ukraine. And Lars and Fred sneaked into Ukraine late last year to take in further supplies. They're also taking, because all the men are on the front, who are a lot of the museum staff, they're actively taking in women and their families, who are the remaining museum staff, and giving them a week or two's break in Sweden and then sneaking them back into the country again. But if you lose your cultural heritage, you have no means of self-identification. And that's why Russia is doing what they're doing, to be able to impose their own set of values on the Ukrainian people. This is why it's so important what we do. If we do not preserve the cultural heritage of our communities and our regions, we have no sense of self-identity. And that is the number one goal. I'm sorry, I get pretty emotional about this. This is the number one goal of what we do and what we strive for in being museum professionals, having boards that are committed to supporting museum professionals in their museum. We've got to continue to tell the stories of the people who came before us, for the people who come for the future, so that they know what happened to their parents and their grandparents and their role in the history of their regions. That is the beauty of maritime museums, and specifically, and cultural institutions and museums generally. You should all be extremely proud of what you have created here and what you have planned for the future. Thank you. Thank you, folks.
Thank you. Wow. That was incredible. Thank you, Kristen. Wow. Amazing. So, Kristen, thank you. I presented Kristen with a couple of copies of some of our museum publications celebrating life on the water all around the world. So enjoy those, Kristen. I want to thank all of you, our members, for joining us here today, and the dozens of you that are online. It's fabulous to have so many people actively participating in our annual meeting. 2024 is already an exceptional year. It's May already, right? We are off to such an incredible start. You heard this amazing momentum from 2023. It continues. Be sure to check out all of our incredible exhibitions. June is coming, and you better believe Naomi and her team have a few things up their sleeves. We've got some extraordinary exhibitions rolling out. Be sure as members to join us on June 14th for the VIP opening of our member preview for our summer exhibitions, both highlighted there in terms of two exhibitions opening, as well as on July 13th for our summer exhibition, July 13th for our summer benefit with a cool new name, Harbor Lights Benefit. You don't want to miss this. It's totally reinvented, and for those of you who have come for the past 2 summers, it will be fully air-conditioned. It's inside. We heard you. We responded. It's going to be a great night. We're mixing it up a little bit with this. But I just want to take a moment and punctuate Kristen's points about community, and I want to say, come to the Whaling Museum early, often, always, right? You are members. We want you to enjoy your member benefit. But don't stop there. I don't know how many of you go and venture a few blocks outside of our doors, but there's some extraordinary things happening in this city. Dawn Salerno at the Roach Jones Duff House. Go visit the Roach Jones Duff House. They have extraordinary public programs, amazing education. You will have full respite in their gorgeous garden. It's not to be missed. If you have not yet gone up just a couple of blocks to Abolition Row, to the New Bedford Historical Society's new installation with an absolutely stunning sculpture of Frederick Douglass, go. What are you waiting for? The New Bedford Art Museum, literally 3 or 4 blocks up our street. If you haven't yet been in there to see their stunning exhibition on glass, contemporary glass, that is got a capitalizing moment, if you will, with a new, permanently installed Dale Chihuly chandelier. Go. Do not miss the opportunities of this creative and cultural mega center that is New Bedford and the South Coast. Come here and make a day of it, eat in our great restaurants, and enjoy everything. Those are just 3 highlights around the city. Enjoy this region and everything it has to offer. And with that, we'll conclude our great annual meeting. Another round of applause, please, for Kristen Greenaway. We invite all of you as members to come and have a glass of wine with us in the Jacobs Family Gallery, where we can all raise a glass to 2023. It was a great year, 5 months later, and celebrate 2024 and all that we're doing going forward and joining us as members. And you are the ones who help propel us forward. So thank you, every single one of you, for being here today. Thank you.